So in one of my quick tip videos last month, I showed you how to create a vinyl spin back effect in Ableton. That's where we mimicked a DJ spinning a record back, and it works so well in productions. But underneath that video, I saw the comment under there asking whether we could do the same thing, but with a DJ scratch effect. Now, you know me, I love a challenge, so I thought I'd sit down and try and figure it out. And you know what? It can be done in Ableton with just one single plugin. So I'm back again with another one of my music production quick tips, and today's one is more of a request more than anything else. It came as a comment under one of my previous videos, and the comment was, can we create a DJ style scratch effect within Ableton? Now, we're not going to get the same kind of effect as a proper scratch DJ in a DAW because it requires a real kind of human touch to make a scratch. And there's probably a whole load of plugins out there that can create something a bit more realistic, maybe some Max for Life devices or some third-party plugins. But I wanted to show you a really quick method with one single plugin within Ableton. Right, so let's make this effect. Now, the first thing obviously is we need some kind of sound source that we're actually going to be scratching. So I've got a drum beat here and I'm just going to drag and drop it onto a brand new audio channel, just so we can kind of listen to this loop and see how it sounds. Now, if I was DJing this out, then what I could actually do is put my hand on the record or the CD player or whatever is playing and stop the record with my hand. And then what I could actually do is kind of almost just glide it forwards and backwards to create that kind of scratching kind of sound. So we got a drum beat here. We just got a simple kick. And what I would do if I was DJing this out, then I'd actually hold my hand down the record, I'd scrub the record forward, so I'd be playing the sample forward as it normally is, and then actually reverse it, playing it in reverse. And that would be our kind of scratch effect. We're going between playing it forward and playing it in reverse. Now we could do this with audio, for example. What I could do is I could take a section here, for example, maybe this section, and I could duplicate this up. And then what I could do is I could then reverse it, and we then have some kind of scratch effect. And what I could do is I could duplicate this again. So we got a really kind of basic kind of scratching effect. That is kind of fundamentally what we're doing with this kind of scratch, but it doesn't sound that great. And also doing it with audio is quite messy. We're not kind of getting the same kind of effect that we want to. So I think we need to go into MIDI to really get this effect to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to create a brand new MIDI channel within here. I'm going to get rid of this audio one because we don't need this anymore. So what I'm going to do within here, I'm actually going to open up the bottom panel so I can drop a new instrument on here. And what I'm actually going to drop on here is a sampler. This is the only plugin we're going to need for this effect. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my samples and drag that same drum sample into the sampler. And then obviously nothing is going to come out of this sampler until we put a MIDI note on here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to draw and create a brand new MIDI clip. And I'm going to draw a note on C3. And I'm going to hit the legato button just to make that note go over the whole length of this clip. Now, obviously you'd make this note go as long as you want this scratch effect to go on for, but we're just kind of testing things around. So I'm just going to make it 8 bars in length. So now if I play this back, we should just have our drum loop as it is normally. Now you'll notice it's not actually looping at the moment. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to put it in loop. Now the standard loop mode will actually just play it looped as it would be normally. But what we want to do is we want to go forwards and back. So I'm actually going to do the forwards and back looping. So you can probably see where we're going with this. What we're going to do next is we're actually going to take that loop. So this is the loop region, and we're going to actually just loop it over the course of just one single beat. So I'm actually going to take that kick in the middle of this sample. I'm going to make sure that the start point is also at the start of this loop as well. I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so we can see it a little bit better. And actually I'll put the start point at the start of this kick. So now if I play this back, so as you can hear, we have that same kind of rough scratching effect that we had with the audio, but now we're going to make it a little bit more realistic. Now at the moment, this is playing it back at the normal speed, but when we scratch a lot faster than the actual track will be playing normally. So we want to actually play this back a little bit quicker. Now we can do this by moving the MIDI notes up in pitch. Now there's two different ways that we can do this. We can either actually move the MIDI note up, or we can change the root down here. So for example, if I jump into this MIDI clip and I start playing this note back a little bit higher, so as you can hear, we're actually pitching that loop up, and we're also making it play faster. So the higher we put it in pitch, the faster it will play, which is very similar to how we would be doing it if we were doing a real scratch. Now, obviously you can move this up and down in pitch as much as you want. It's your own personal taste. So pitching it definitely does help. It does make it sound a little bit more realistic, but it doesn't sound very human-like at the moment. At the moment, it's very mechanical because it's just playing the same thing back at the same speed. So even though we have pitched it up, it's still just playing it back at that same speed, that same pitch every single time, which is not very human. We wouldn't be able to do that if we were doing this in real life. We wouldn't be able to keep that same kind of pitch, that same kind of speed every single time. We would have a certain amount of fluctuation in that. So that's what we want to bring into this next. And actually that's just as easy to do. So I just want to take a couple of seconds away from this video just to tell you about my brand new Patreon page. If you're loving the tips and tricks and content that I'm putting out on here, then you can help support the channel by backing me on there. There's a few different levels, whether you just want to show your support or whether you want to be included in some exclusive Patreon-only Q&A live streams. I'll also be giving out all my presets, my effects, my templates, and a whole load more on there. Last week, I launched it with 3 brand new effects: Dirt, Multi-Filter, and Minor Chorder. Awesome little plugins that I went over in a video last week. So if you want to help support the channel, definitely check that out. I'm going to put a link in the top of this video and in the description. So if you want to get hold of my presets, effects, and a whole load more, definitely head over to my brand new Patreon page. Right, so back into this tip, and let's go into the modulation tab of the sampler. And what we're going to do is we're going to enable LFO1. And what we're going to do is we're going to send a certain amount of LFO1 to the pitch. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dial a little bit in. So you can hear that pitch going up and down. It's going up and down in a sine wave. So it is starting to it's varying up a little bit, but it's actually, again, a bit too predictable because it's going up and down as a sine wave would do. So what we want to do is we want to make it a bit more random. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a different type from within here. And luckily we actually have the random wave within here as well. So that's going to give us an even better effect. So we're definitely starting to get there now. We're adding some random nature into it, but it's actually a bit too slow. That waveform is changing too slowly. So what we're going to do is increase the frequency. So that's starting to sound a lot better now. I've tweaked the frequency, but this is going to change depending on what sample you're using and the speed of the scratching, and also to your own taste as well. So definitely play around with that frequency control. So I would say that we're almost there now. The only thing we can do is actually kind of tweak this pitch control here, the pitch percentage. Now, the more that we increase this pitch percentage, the sloppier the scratching is going to be. So you can really dial this in as much as you want to. So you could be as good a scratcher or as bad a scratcher as you wanted to. So if you went all the way to 100%, then obviously it's going to be the person who has the worst kind of timing and scratching ability. But the more you kind of get towards 0, the more kind of mechanical it's going to be. So the more accurate it's going to be. It's totally up to you. You can kind of find this middle ground between it being robotic and it being totally sloppy. So you kind of just play around with that pitch until you kind of get that the percentage that works for you. So I think in this case, about 15% works quite well. As you can hear there, we have the scratching going backwards and forwards, but because we have this LFO in there, it's just slightly affecting the pitch, which makes it just go slightly faster or slightly slower, which gives us a slightly different effect. So I think we pretty much got everything set up within here to create an almost realistic scratch. Now, the other thing we can do is actually go back to the sample and maybe find a different part of this drum loop maybe to scratch. So I'm going to move the start point here to this snare. I think this is actually a snare here. And then I'm going to move the loop region and we'll hear how that sounds. So we can hear with this snare sample, maybe we don't want it to vary in pitch as much. So I'm going to go back to the modulation tab and just reduce that pitch amount. So there you go, a really super simple technique for creating a DJ style scratch effect within Ableton. Now I know I'm going to get a whole load of comments under this video about different plugins and Max for Life devices and even different techniques for doing this, but this is just the way that I would do it. And it's a really, really simple way. It only takes a few minutes and just one single plugin. So that can't be bad, surely. So if you like this video, definitely subscribe to my channel. I've got a whole load more stuff like this on my channel, music production tips, live streams from the studio of me making tracks and remixing tracks. So definitely check that all out on my channel. Subscribe, hit that notification icon as well, so you're notified the moment I upload a new video, and hopefully I'll see you again in the next one.